Hello, this is the Black Nationalist coming back at you again with another timely content. So I do know that most of you probably familiar with the gentleman named Groovin Gorilla. As you can see right here in this picture, he is this 6'0", 6 foot guy, 260 pounds, I believe, from what I have read. He's a bodybuilder, and he goes around like a minstrel show, goes around dancing no matter where location he's at. He could be at a restaurant, he could just be anywhere, and he would just bust out and start dancing and start looking like a fool when he's eating and just making a mockery of the black race. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he is Nigerian, and we do know how Nigerians feels about us foundational black Americans. They have a disdain about us for some reason. Ever since they like to say that we call them African booty scratcher, which is something that we use against us when we called each other that. Most kids don't even use that today because they don't even know what that is, nor does it make any sense. It was a joke that was used back in the 80s, and it hasn't been used ever since then. And that joke was always geared towards other foundational black Americans, not towards Africans. But you know how Nigerians, they like to harp on it and say that, oh, you guys call us that. And that's the only thing that they could say. That's the only thing that they could say. And there isn't anything else. So that's why it's kind of baffling as to why in the world Nigerians in particular, they have this hatred towards us, when we all know during the civil rights, if it wasn't for our great grandparents, and some of them might still be around, our grandparents might still be around from the civil rights movement, to want to have Africans to come into this country, because America did not want Africans into this country, because they looked at it as maybe they may hook up with us, because the whole point of from our people as foundational black Americans, our people was thinking that if we was to have more Africans to come to America, they would join on our side as far as with unison is concerned. But we know that did not happen, and I can guarantee you for a fact that the blacks, the foundational black American great grandparents who have fought for Africans to come to this country, if they would have known that they was going to become traitors, they would not have fought hard for them. So I just wanted to make sure that I give out that spiel in regards to Groovin Gorilla. I'm not even going to worry about playing any of his dance videos because they're very cringeworthy, and it makes you shake your head because of how idiotic that he looks. He doesn't understand that people are laughing at him. They are not laughing with him. But in their minds, especially Africans whose entire continent has been colonized, which colonized means slavery, since they are our slaves over in Africa, because they don't own the resources, they don't own their land, they build and they give to other people. So what is that? That's being a slave. You're working, but you're not working for yourself. You working to enrich other people. That is what being a slave is. So when he do these minstrel acts, they are rooted in stereotypes in a negative light against black people, against us foundational black Americans. Now, the earliest minstrel characters took as their base popular white stage archetypes: frontiermen, fishermen, hunters, and riverboatmen, whose depicts drew heavily from the tall tale and added exaggerated blackface speech and makeup. These Jim Crows, because this is where it's from, and gumbo shafts fought and boasted that they would whip their weight in wildcats or eat alligator. As public opinion towards blacks changed, however, so did the minstrel stereotypes. Eventually, several stock characters emerged. Chief among them were the slave, who often maintained the earlier name Jim Crow, and the dandy, known frequently as Zip Coon from the song Zip Coon. First depicted by George Dixon in 1834, Zip Coon made a mockery of free blacks. An arrogant figure dressed in high style and spoke in a series of malaprops and puns that undermined his attempts to appear dignified. The white actors who portrayed these characters spoke in exaggerated form of black vernacular English. The blackface makeup and illustrations on programs and sheet music depicted them with huge eyeballs, very wide noses, and thick-lipped mouths that hung open or grinned foolishly. One character expressed his love for a woman with lips so large a lover could not kiss them all at once. They had huge feet and preferred possum and coon to more civilized fare. Minstrel characters were often described in animalistic terms, with wool instead of hair, bleeding like sheep, and having darky cubs instead of children. Other claims were that blacks had to drink ink when they got sick to restore their color, and that they had to file their hair rather than cut it. They were inherently musical, dancing, frolicking through the night with no need for sleep. These are the negative stereotypes that came with the minstrel show. That's why you see on the thumbnail, I do have Billy Van with the minstrel show that shows the blackface transformation from white to black. And as it may mention is how they have the wide noses, the thick lips that look foolish, that grin foolishly, the huge eyeball, the huge feet, and then they always refer to us as animals. This is where you get coons from, things like that. This is why we call certain black people who works against black interests as coons. Well, it stems from this. It stems from this because a coon tap dances, and that's the whole point of a coon. They tap dance for their white master. They put on a show for their white master. Well, this groovin gorilla, he does the same thing. He tap dances. He puts on a show for white people. You always see him in restaurants or in different places at the mall or things to that nature where there's a large amount of white people in the audience, and he just puts on this show for them. He start putting on them shoes and he puts on that hat and he just start dancing out of nowhere just to get attention. This is why they don't want our history to be taught in school, because if our history was taught in school, people like him and others, they would be forced to understand as to how racist this country is and the amount of things that we had to go through. I just got finished watching The American Maroon from Brother Tyreek Nasheed. It is very educational. If you have not gotten the FBA streams, I do encourage you to do so, to get it. And in there, it basically shows how we have always been fighting for our survival, how we have always been fighting against white supremacy in order for us to survive, just for us to thrive. All we want is just to thrive like everybody else. But see, white people, they don't want that. They want us to remain as slaves. White people, they want us to just be subjugated and oppressed in every which way you can think of in life. That's all white people want from us. They don't want us to thrive. We want to thrive as foundational black Americans, but white people don't want that. And so everything is rooted in racism. This country was built off of racism. You cannot say that these people, white people, were some type of way they gained an epiphany and said, you know what, let us let go of these black Negroes and let them enjoy their freedom. No, we have always been fighting them every step of the way. And that's what the Maroon movie is talking about. And how we have beat them and how we have fought for our freedom. We truly indeed have been fighting for our freedom for a very, very long time. And I'm very much tired of us fighting for our freedom, fighting just for us to be looked at as normal human beings, just like everybody else. Everybody else, those who are non-melanated, they can live a good life. But we, the melanated, we can't live a good life. You can have all the money in the world as a black person and you still going to be treated and be reminded of being black. If you're not doing this groovin gorilla minstrel type show, then they will not accept you. Or if you're not emasculated, your masculinity being broken in two, then they will not accept you. Society will not accept you. It really is a shame as to how low that these people do view us. But we have to find a way to say, you know what? We're no longer going to allow these people to break us. We cannot allow white supremacy to break us, not in this time of the game, because we have our next generation that we need to think of. Now, there is another gentleman. I can't think of his name, but he goes around eating watermelon in the same negative stereotype, Jim Crow manner. He bucket his eyes as he eats the watermelon. I couldn't find his picture, so excuse me that you don't see his photo up here. But you also have other photos of black people with their eyes bucked while they're trying to eat the watermelon, which is why you see it in my thumbnail. Well, again, this is what happened when you don't teach our history in school, because if you teach our history in school, our children will be mindful not to commit such an act, because by making a mockery of what our people went through. And what I'm talking about is the origins of watermelon and how it was changed into something negative. Now, see, watermelon can be dated back approximately 6,000 years ago, which it was domesticated throughout Sudan, Egypt, Ethiopia, Libya, and Kenya, and it has been enjoyed by high royalties. Now, by the mid-19th century, watermelon became racialized, and around the time of the Civil War, negative descriptions about foundational Black American watermelon eaters started becoming more prominent. According to researcher William R. Black, enslaved people would sometimes negotiate informal contracts with their owners to cultivate and sell their own crops on designated plots of land on the plantations that they worked on. As watermelons were easy to grow, they became a popular choice. Black quotes one former enslaved person as saying, "We never had our own gardens, but we had small watermelon patches." So to them, they looked at it as a sense of pride. The slaves, they looked at it as a sense of pride or a taste of freedom. Now, post-emancipation after the Civil War ended, newly freed foundational Black Americans continued to grow watermelons and sold them to generate income for themselves. See, Black people, we have always wanted to work, and to work for ourselves is to do betterment for ourselves. We never were lazy. We have always worked. We are lazy people. How do you think this country came about? Now, newly emancipated Africans employed their farming and entrepreneur abilities to produce and sell items like watermelon and the like. Howard University Afro-American Studies lecturer Dr. Jovan McAllister. Now, personal gardens and their ability to sell its goods after completing their obligations fostered a taste of freedom driven by their own efforts and on their own terms. See, the watermelon was something that was looked at in a good way. It was to show that they were free and that they were able to become entrepreneurs by selling these watermelons so that they can make the money for their families, because especially after the so-called ending of slavery. However, because we're living under a system of white supremacy, this new economic model upset some former slave owners in the South who were angered that formerly subjugated foundational Black Americans had carved out a lucrative business niche for themselves and were enjoying the fruits of their labor. This air of freedom among those formerly enslaved further humiliated Southern whites. Dr. McAllister said the sheer audacity for freed Africans to persevere in spite of their deplorable actions caused the concerted effort and sharp response of Southern whites to create a racist trope around the fruit and freed Africans. See, this is why I don't understand when you have Black people that wants to coon for white people. White people hate us. White people have a disdain for us. White people would rather see us dead than being alive. White people look at us as being castaways. They don't look at us as being human beings. They look at us as being lesser than a dog. You see, something so innocent, when these freed Africans, they wanted to make a living. They wanted to carve out a living for themselves after being enslaved for other people, forced to work under horrible conditions of being taunted, being beaten, being killed, being raped, the atrocities that went against our people. Now that they had a taste of freedom and they wanted to do better for themselves and for their family, white people looked at that and they were enraged about it. White people felt humiliated about it because they're saying that they don't like the fact that these free slaves are persevering in spite of their deplorable conditions. So there was a smear campaign, and this happened throughout the Jim Crow era. This is why reparation is needed, not just for slavery, but for Jim Crow. Throughout the Jim Crow era, smear campaigns involving foundational Black Americans eating watermelon began to spread, partially as a form of bigotry, but also as an attempt to squash foundational Black Americans' businesses. As an inferior used images of foundational Black Americans stealing, fighting over, or sitting in trees eating watermelon in an effort to shame Black watermelon merchants, according to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Degrading African Americans by way of watermelon also acted as a ploy to derail Black people from gaining and sustaining positions of power. See, they used food. They took something, white supremacists took something so innocent with the sole purpose of destroying a group of people. That should let you know how powerful we really are. See, when they want to erase us from ancient commit as us being kings and queens, and not just in Egypt, because we was also kings and queens in other parts of Africa as well. We don't want to just say Egypt only, but we was highly civilized. Egypt was the world's first empire. And that consists of Black Africans that created that. I don't care what anybody says. Egypt was the world's first empire. And that was built by Black Africans. No one else. No one white was needed. See, white people have this mindset thinking that we need them. We do not need them. Africa was doing so well. Africa was living in peace before white people came out of those Caucasus Mountains and brought about destruction. Like Sister Shahrazad Ali said in Hidden Colors 5, that Africans did not know that they was opening their arms to a bunch of savages when those white people came back to Africa. They didn't know that they was opening arms to savages. Now, see, only a savage would take something so innocent as a watermelon to use it to degrade and to derail. Derail is to throw off. Just like a train that's on the track, what you do is you switch the switch to derail that train off the track. It's the same thing. They wanted to throw off Black people off the track of prosperity. That's what they wanted. And they got their wish. Well, almost got their wish. But that's why every single time when we build, they destroy. Every single time when our people build, white people destroy. Why? Because they do not want us to sustain any position of power. They don't want us to have any power in this system. So when you hear of a white person that says, oh, you people are lazy, or especially these tethers that like to say we're lazy, or they like to say, well, you people can't build this, you people can't build that. Well, you know what? You let them know. When it comes to this watermelon negative stereotype that you guys have for us, we use that as a way to make a means for ourselves after the end of slavery. We use that as a means to help provide money for our families so that we can prosper. But your people did not like that. Your people wanted to derail us from gaining and sustaining position of power. Your people did not like the fact that we was free and that we was persevering under our deplorable conditions. Your people did not like that. So who is the real savage? It surely isn't us. We were actually working. You all was so busy trying to work against us. So when I hear white people like Scott Adams want to talk about some white people need to step away from Black people, yes, you all need to step away from us, because when you step away from us, that's when we thrive. That is what has been shown throughout history. When you all step away from us, that is when we thrive. But see, you all want to take away resources from us so that we cannot thrive, because you don't want us to see us to grow into a position of power, which is going to overtake everything. And these people know that, and they understand that. So by going back to the negative stereotype of the watermelon, associating the fruit with ideas like ignorance, uncleanness, and laziness, refusing to accept their participation in society, politics, business is viewed as justified, and their consumption of watermelon was an outward expression of their inward inferiority. White people love to say that they are superior, but they took something that was oh so innocent, shows how inferior they are. White people are really weak. They need us to be around so that they can beat up on us. They need us to be around so that they can beat up on us. We give them something. If all black people were to be done away with, white people will turn on the next group until they are no more. Because see, throughout history, white people have been fighting each other throughout history, to the point that they nearly brought themselves to ascension. That's what's going to end up happening. That is exactly what's going to end up happening. If white people were to try to have their way, they are going to do whatever they possibly can to go up against us. But see, we as black people, we have a battle. We have a war that we have to win. We have to keep winning, and we have to keep fighting. We have to put up a fight, and we cannot stop. That's why it is so hurtful when you see black people, those who wear your same skin color, when they act a fool, when they put on a dance, when they buck their eyes when they're eating chicken, when they eating watermelon, they don't realize the racism that goes right behind it, because it is not taught. And you know what? To be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if these Africans, they know about it, but they just don't care. That's the hurting part. They may know about this stuff, but they just don't care, because they have been so oppressed in their own country. When they come over to America, they know that it is very easy to jump on the train of attacking foundational black Americans, because we are poor. It's easy to attack us because we are poor. We don't have any resources, which is the reason why we are going to the government saying, hey, we're not going to white people. We're going to the government saying, hey, you need to take care of us. This is what we are saying. We need to be taken care of. We are U.S. citizens as well. We see you taking care of other groups, specifically making sure that they are getting tangibles in order for them to thrive. Now they're giving tangibles to first home ownership to black immigrants. That's what they are doing now. So when you hear these immigrants talking about that they came over here with nothing and they was able to make a business, you have to ask yourself, how did you get credit? How did you get enough credit in order to get a business loan? How did you get enough credit in order for you to get a house loan? How did you get enough credit in order for you to get a car? How were you able to land so much amount of money in order for you to do what you are doing? Whereas we've been living over here and we have been working and grinding to the fingers of our bone, and we can't get anywhere. So how is it that you are able to do all of this and we have been living here and we haven't been able to move? The reason why you're able to get to where you're at is because you're given resources. The minute you step over here, you are given resources. I'm telling you, the IA-64, that is, long as they have a sponsor, they are able to get resources. And I do know a lot of Africans uses that. The I-485, the I-765, that gives them their yearly work visa. I forgot the other application, because see, I used to work for Citizenship and Immigration Services, so I know what these applications are for, and it is for them, and they give them money. They give them a place to stay. We see where these individuals are given places to stay up in New York. These these illegal citizens, they are given places to stay. They the Afghanistans, when they have them to the Afghanistan refugees, I know my best friend who lives in Virginia, he was like, they riding around in nice cars. They putting them inside of these expensive condos right there in Virginia. And then we have these Ukrainians, they giving them money left and right. They giving them billions upon billions upon billions. And yet they want to have the nerve to say that they don't want to be around black people. But yet we supposed to feel sorry for them? No. No, absolutely not. So we have a war. We have a war. We have always been in a war. Ever since our people, there have been black people, and in that documentary, The American Maroons, there has always been Africans here. But we do know that the way how they have been treated, and we do know that the Africans that was here on the slave boat that came here to this continent, it was not known as America until after our people have built this continent. And also it goes to show you that our bodies were the ones that built this economy. It was our bodies. So yes, foundational black Americans did build America. You did not have any immigrants that came over here until after this country was built, until after it was known as the United States of America. Afterwards. So I just had to come on here and to say something about these negative stereotypes. This groovin gorilla, to me, that is already offensive. He should know better not to call himself a gorilla, because white people already look at us as being apes. They already look at us as being monkeys. So why in the world would you want to call yourself a gorilla? A silverback gorilla at that. Because that's the only thing that you look like. Because when I Googled groovin gorilla, I saw silverbacks and his photos. And they got a silverback gorilla as a toy in a suit dancing. I kid you not. So that is something that he already has low self-esteem. A lot of these Africans have low self-esteem because they have been oppressed so badly in their country. They see that the resources being extracted from their country is not going to them. It's going to white people's hands. Now it's going to Chinese hands, especially in Nigeria. China owns Nigeria. China is setting themselves up for them to be the new colonizer of Africa. That's what they are doing. They're setting themselves up for that. But yet these Africans come over here with their disdain and their hatred towards us, like we have destabilized their country. They acting like we have stolen their resources. They act like we are the reason why their country is in shambles as the way how it is now. No, we're not the cause of it. But the main people that they need to be angry with, they're not angry with. Ain't that is backwards. That is backwards as all outdoors. The very people that you need to be angry with, the one who colonized your entire continent, which is the reason why you had no other choice but to leave because they starved you out. You're not angry with them, but yet you're angry with us and you calling us cicadas. And we are supposed to just sit down and allow you to make a mockery of what our people have been going through in this country by you doing this idiotic dancing, no matter where you go, bucking your eyes, shucking and jiving. And you think that we're supposed to just sit there and allow that without having any type of repercussions coming from us? No, you're absolutely out of your mind. You are absolutely crazy. We have every right to voice what we are voicing and what we have to say. And individuals like Cardi B who wants to come out and say, oh, they're just having fun, they're just being cheesy, she needs to shut up and she needs to sit down. That's why her face looked like a bag of rocks went up across her face and one side looked swollen. All that surgery she done had on her face. And then she over here making a mockery out of black people as well by her doing all that degenerate stuff. It really is a shame. Now, what if we as foundational black Americans were to go over to Nigeria or any other parts of the country and we start recording videos of our stomachs being big, and then we start recording videos of flies being around us, we looking ashy, and we taking a dump on their beach? They would not like that. These people will not like that at all, but they feel that it is okay for them to make a mockery out of us. This is how you know that they truly have a deep hatred towards us. And for what reason? I don't know why. I do not know why. I truly believe that before they come to America, that they are told to not only stay away from us, but to have a hatred towards us. I truly believe that with all my heart. So that's all that I wanted to take the time to talk to you guys about. I will be back with more important videos. I do know that I want to speak upon the Sierra situation of her making independent, song talking about that you don't need a man and things of that nature. I am going to make a video to talk about that because it's something imperative. Just like my previous video, I talked about the abortion rates among the black community, among black women. Having this type of toxic mentality is something that is what's destroying us. We could be well over 16% of in this country, but yet you want to push ideology of being an independent woman, not having a man, not having a husband in the household, which you leaving our children to be open to be easily preyed upon by predators. So I'm going to put out a video talking about that. I want to go into further details, but I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm out.